This Shabbat Shirah is always something that's really so inspiring. You have this amazing text, and it just begins that there was this poem or a shir, and which we know of also as song, and we have this incredible text that talks about how God was there for us, and we were able to get to freedom, and then Miriam with her timbrel, and it's a tremendous story. That's not what I'm going to talk about. But you should read it, because it's good for you. The thing that I do want to talk about is something else that's in the Torah shortly after this, and it's about a fight. So it has nothing to do with singing, and it still has something to do with moving toward redemption, but the fight is with this tribe of people and a huge enemy of Israel, and they're called Amalek. Amalek is the king, and Amalek is the tribe. Amalek is not a nice guy. And we see all throughout the Torah and throughout the Bible that Amalek is somebody that you really need to wipe out. But it says in the text that Moses says to Joshua, and Joshua is like Moses' lieutenant. Moses says to Joshua, pick some of the men for us and go out to battle with Amalek. Tomorrow I'm going to station myself on the top of a hill, and I'm going to have God's rod in my hand. We've seen the rod before in all of the movies. It's the same rod. I have rod in the hand of Moses. Remember, it's God's rod. Moses is just hanging on to it. And that's what happens. Moses goes to this hill. Joshua goes out to fight, and he's taking a bunch of other guys, and they're fighting Amalek, this terrible enemy. And while Joshua is fighting, Moses and Aaron and Hur went up to this hill, and it's just like the movies. There's some generals that are kind of up on the hill watching everybody fight below. That's kind of the scene. But I don't think that Moses and Aaron and Hur, the three that are up on that hill, they're not just standing by and watching and kind of scratching their chins. That's not really what's happening. We see that Moses, who's this incredible prophet, and God hires Moses explicitly in order to bring the people out of Egypt and bring them to the promised land. Aaron, we know, is Moses' brother. And Hur, according to the rabbis, might be Miriam's husband, but also works with Aaron from time to time when Moses isn't around and seems to be somebody of substance at the time. Well, the three of them are clearly leaders, and they're up on the hill, and they're doing God's work. Because the Torah also says that Moses has to raise up that rod, which is a source of authority that comes directly from God. It empowers Moses. But over time, it gets heavy, right? He's not a young kid anymore. And they're all fighting. How long can any of us hold up some rod for a really long time? And so Aaron and Hur get a stone, and they sit Moses down, make him a little bit more comfortable, but it's still kind of hard to hold that up. And whenever it is up, the Israelites are winning. And whenever it comes down a little bit, Amalek is going to be winning. And so Aaron gets on one side, Hur gets on the other side, and they're holding each side of that rod up. It's kind of a beautiful thing. They are supporting Moses without any hesitation. It reminds me very clearly of my first college roommate. Not because I was holding up any rods during the day, but I remember I felt like I'm going to have this great new experience, and I'm not going to go and live in this freshman dorm. I'm going to go to the rest of the dorms. And they room me with a 24-year-old bodybuilder, weightlifter. And I was terrified, and I was thinking, this isn't going to go so well for me, because I'm like this nebbishy Jewish kid, right? I still am. And in that first moments of being with him, and I'm a little intimidated because he makes me look petite. And we start this friendship, and little by little we get to know each other, and he's a lovely guy. He was also a veteran, and he knew how to fight, and he happened to be a bouncer in a local pub, and still feeling very intimidated by this guy. But here's the thing, at some point he said, listen, if anybody ever bothers you, you should let me know. That's not the support I was looking for. And I don't think that's the support that Moses was getting either. It was nice to feel like a connection. I was still kind of afraid of the guy. But support that we can provide for one another doesn't have to be to beat up our enemies or the one that might tease us. To provide this aspect of support is something that's so significant. And Aaron and Hur were important people, but they weren't Moses, but they had a job to play. So I wonder, if we think about it, when you see somebody holding up that staff, are you stepping forward? Am I stepping forward in order to help? Are we holding it up for somebody else? And when we are the ones that are holding it, who's holding up your rod when you have to fight something? Because I would say that all of us have aspects of leadership in our lives, whether it's going to be in our house with children or with a community or with friends. We have a role to play. We have a job to do. How are we showing up to keep an end up so that it doesn't fall and let an enemy prevail? That's something that is so significant. And I think we have a lot of people, even in our congregation, that are playing lots of roles. It's not the clergy, right? Maybe from time to time I might hold something up. That doesn't make me a Moses. But for us to be like Moses, I think we all have that. And we have that opportunity in lots of different places. And in this particular synagogue, we have lots of folks who are taking positions of leadership, and they're passing that rod from one to the other like a relay race. Because when it's our turn to lead something here, we have to have leaders. And then we have somebody that's providing some support. And then we're going to shift roles. And sometimes it's to go out and battle, and sometimes it's to lead. But all the time, it's to make a difference. And all of the time, it's to help fulfill a mission. So one of the things we wanted to do tonight is to recognize the members of our board, the members of our leadership team, because for lots of congregations, there's a culture that says, I don't want to go on the board. And when we're president and when our term is over, there's something in other congregations, not in this one, that's a happy dance. I don't believe in a happy dance for past presidents. I think it should be something, an experience, as challenging as it may be from time to time, to be the one that gets complaints about the rabbi or whatever else it might be. From time to time, there's hard things in the work that we do, no matter what that work is. But when you come here, a lot of folks don't even know who's on the board, and some folks know exactly who's on the board. And sometimes, once in a while, we need to express a little gratitude for doing a hard job. Not always an easy one, and not one that gets lots of accolades. And in some communities, it's a thing that I want to avoid like the plague. And in this community, more and more and more, it's an opportunity to serve and to do and to make a difference in people's lives. I don't think it's easy to be a leader. I don't think it's easy. They have jobs that a lot of us don't necessarily want. When the pipe from the street that connects to the building, well, where are we going to find that extra money? How are we going to create a culture of tzedakah so that it's not about a bill, but it's about supporting a Jewish community that's thriving and wants to be vital and vibrant and make a difference in people's lives, not because we want more members? How do we create a place where our Jewish education is going to be thriving not just for the kids, but for as many people as possible throughout our lives, in different times of our lives? How is it that we're going to be challenged and comforted? Who's going to help us advance the mission? And it's not just me, and it's not just a president. There's lots of people on our staff. There's lots of people who are volunteers, who are serving. And yes, we have people who are on our board of trustees that are trying to make a difference in our lives, not just for the synagogue. They're also challenged to live their Jewish values out loud, whether it relates to being accountable to you and how do we spend our gifts, as well as how do we sustain one another in terms of being inspired. So we have some gifts that we want to present to them. I'm going to ask Ira Greschler first to come forward. He's our synagogue president. We're going to call our members of our board to come forward, receive this gift. And a gift from a synagogue should be a book, right? Because we're the people of the book, not of the iPad. That's a really important distinction. And in this book, the book is about relational Judaism. How do we transform, and it's required reading, by the way, board members. Relational Judaism is the name of the book by a wonderful teacher, and it is not how do you make synagogues bigger, and it's not about how do you make them better, but how do we create relationships so that this place is real, and that it's authentic, and that it's compelling, and that only happens when there is a rod up in front of the sanctuary that lots of people are holding, all sharing in it together. And that's how we, I think, will achieve our goals, our hopes, and our dreams, and certainly our visions. So little by little, in no specific order, we're going to be sharing this book and calling you up. And when you come up, please stay and stand here with us. So Lori Nichols, if you'll please come forward. And Greg Frost. Here, I'm going to call them, and you're going to pass them.
Okay.
All right. Bruce Henderson. And Barry Bear. And Ira Greschler, who's already here. And Gary Solomon. Did I see Gary? He wasn't able to make it.
He's in Europe.
And Marianne Balin. He's in Europe. Kathy Schoenfeld.
For work. I was afraid it was not that fun.
And Gita Carroll. Is Gita here? Diane Glenn. And Todd Greenberg, Gary Margolis, there's Todd, Madeline Cohen, and Sarah Jane Cohen. Did we get everybody? Please, God, say yes. Yes, okay, good. So this is a lovely group of people. I'm going to ask Ira just to share a few words, and then we'll share another message for our leaders. Thank
you. Shabbat Shalom.
You're staying here. You're doing great.
You're doing So the rabbis already shared a lot of very kind words about the board. But I would like to tell you a little bit about our board at Har Hashem. I know these people. I've had the privilege of working with these people. And I'm here to say, these are good people. These are smart people. These are hardworking and dedicated people. These people, every man and woman here, cares deeply about Har Hashem. And every month, they lead, and every month that we work as a team for Har Hashem. And every one of these people is selfless. They are not doing it for themselves. We don't bicker, we don't argue. We all know what our mission is. We all know what we're here to do, and we are a really good team. And I am honored and humbled to be one of them.
Thank you, Ira. So as our friends are here, I want to share a couple of little brief messages that apply for them, but the truth is it applies for all of us. We know some basic terms in Hebrew and Jewish tradition. Shema Yisrael. We know that means to listen, O Israel, so listen more and speak less, friends. Hear all the voices that seek to be heard within our community. Reflect on the wide variety of reactions, and then figure out what needs to be done. The next term, Am Echad B'Lev Echad. There's one people with one heart. Affirm that we are one community going in the same direction. Continue to speak your truths respectfully and argue lovingly so that we can learn from one another. Perhaps our minds will be changed, but we try and find the best decisions that we can possibly find together. When we finish the book of the Torah during our Torah reading, we say chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. That last few words is about being strong and to be strengthened by the Torah. So be strong and be strengthened by the work that you're doing. Share your gifts as leaders, but also always try to find inspiration in the work that you're doing. So it's not just gifts that you give, but gifts that you receive. And Ahavat Yisrael, love for the Jewish people. Be a lover of Israel. Be loving and be patient. Be insistent. For our journey to be covenantal, we must be willing to hold up the staff for one another, God's rod with strength and power, knowing that it is the rod of the Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One of blessing. That is how we will be empowered to make good use of it. And, of course, lastly, to share a blessing that is of peace, a blessing that is of hope, and a blessing that is passed on for lots of leaders in our community. May God bless you and keep you. May God look kindly upon you and always be loving and gracious to you. And may God reach out to you with tenderness and give you shalom and peace and wholeness and strength today and tomorrow and every day, even when you're no longer on the board. So thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for continuing to guide all of us, and thank you for being a part of a rich and dynamic community.